distances. By raising and lowering the voltage, AC could solve the problem of distance, but a working AC motor did not exist. In spite of their differences, Edison hired Tesla to improve the performance of his DC generators. Tesla said he was promised $50,000 if he was successful. The offer seemed too good to be true.
I entered the Edison Machine Works, where I undertook the design of DC dynamos and motors. My regular hours were from 10:30 a.m. till 5 a.m. the next day. When I completed the task, I went to Edison for payment, and he laughed.
Edison was very amused by this. Said, "You just don't understand our American sense of humor, Mr. Tesla." So Tesla had had enough by that time, and he picked up his hat and walked out.
Tesla paid dearly for his pride.
I lived through a year of bitter tears and hard labor, digging ditches for Edison's underground cables.
But he was still determined to develop his AC motor. With help from a group of investors, he opened a laboratory on Liberty Street, only a few blocks from Edison's offices. There, he began to assemble a prototype of the motor he had envisioned 7 years earlier. Along with it, he developed all the components of the system of AC power generation and transmission still used today. In May of 1888, Tesla was ready to unveil his motor to the world.
The subject which I now have the pleasure of bringing to your notice is a novel motor which I am confident will at once establish the superior adaptability of alternating currents.
Over the next 5 years, 22 U.S. patents were awarded to Nikola Tesla for AC motors, generators, transformers, and transmission lines, the most valuable patents since the invention of the telephone. One of the few men who understood the great potential of Tesla's inventions was the Pittsburgh industrialist George Westinghouse. He visited Tesla's laboratory, and on the spot, he offered to purchase all the patents dealing with the alternating current system for $1 million. Westinghouse also proposed a royalty of $2.50 for each horsepower generated by a Tesla invention. The young Serb was on his way to fortune and fame, while other inventors looked on with fascination and with envy.
In all my troubles, I did not neglect to become a real American citizen, making me a proud and happy man.
During the late 1880s, Edison began a negative media campaign to discredit the alternating current system of electricity being developed by Westinghouse and Tesla. It became known as the War of the Currents.
My personal desire would be to prohibit entirely the use of alternating currents. They are as unnecessary as they are dangerous.
Edison employees demonstrated the dangers of alternating current by electrocuting animals in public demonstrations.
Just as certain as death, Westinghouse will kill a customer within 6 months after he puts in a system of any size. None of his plans worry me in the least.
An Edison associate suggested using alternating current as a means of executing criminals. A test took place at New York's Auburn State Prison in 1890. Several gruesome attempts were required to kill the victim. Disgusted witnesses claimed his spinal cord burst into flame.
The infliction of the death penalty is not only barbarous and inhuman, but unnecessary as a factor in the scheme of modern civilization.
The War of the Currents came to a dramatic head in 1893. The Columbian Exposition in Chicago was to be the first World's Fair lighted by electricity.
The Edison Company, the Thomson-Houston Company, they all got together and formed General Electric Company, 1892. And one of the first things they did, of course, was put in a bid for the job at the fair. Their bid was roughly $1 million. The Westinghouse bid was about $500,000, and naturally, Westinghouse got the job.
In retaliation, GE refused to sell Westinghouse any of their Edison light bulbs.
And they got some judge to say that Westinghouse couldn't use any one-piece lamps of any description at the fair.
Westinghouse frantically devised a two-piece stopper lamp by fair time and saved the day. Now Tesla had a chance to make history in Chicago. His large AC generators would supply all of the fair's electricity and prove that his system would work on a large scale. On May 1st, 1893, 100,000 eager spectators filed into the fairgrounds, awed by the gleaming neoclassical architecture. Night fell. President Grover Cleveland pressed a button, and the fairgrounds exploded with brilliant tube lighting and multicolored searchlights. The most incredible display of lighting the world had ever seen. In the great hall of electricity, the public could see that the Tesla-Westinghouse system made it all possible. To overcome the impression that AC was dangerous, Tesla put on remarkable demonstrations. He created a device called the Egg of Columbus to show the rotating magnetic field created by his AC motor.
In his room, he had cork-soled shoes on and a tuxedo and white tie and a top hat, and he would put his hand on a terminal which would flash electricity through his body, creating a great shower as his whole body was encompassed in flame, and people were quite impressed by this, to say the least.
The Chicago Exposition left an indelible impression on the American imagination. This was the gleaming new city of the future, and it was powered by the inventions of Nikola Tesla. Since childhood, Tesla had dreamed of harnessing the power of the great natural wonder called Niagara Falls. The famous British physicist, Lord Kelvin, was now head of an international commission to find a way to use the fall's power.
He had sent a cable to all the other members of his commission, and it said, "Trust you avoid the gigantic mistake of alternating current."
But all this dramatically changed when Lord Kelvin attended the Chicago Exposition and saw the AC system in operation. A contract was immediately awarded to Westinghouse Electric to power the mighty cataract with AC. The technical challenge was daunting. The Niagara plan called for 3 5,000 horsepower alternators, the largest generators ever made. Tesla and Westinghouse engineers had heated disagreements about the operating frequency. Even when the system was finally installed, Tesla was the only person who was certain it would operate.
The technical details have been completely worked out. All that now remains is for the switch to be thrown.
In 1896, the system went online and the electrical age began. The waters of the upper Niagara turned enormous water turbines connected by shafts to the massive 5,000 horsepower generators. The current from the generators was stepped up with transformers to 22,000 volts and sent out over long-distance lines, then stepped back down to light municipalities and power motors of Tesla's design. The Niagara Falls Gazette proclaimed,
"This morning, the streetcars of this city are moving by Falls power. Hereafter, the Falls must work to earn their living."
Imagine my surprise when 30 years later I saw my boyhood plan carried out at Niagara and wondered at the unfathomable mystery of the mind.
Within a few years, the number of generators at Niagara was increased to 10. By the turn of the century, the power lines stretched 360 miles to New York City. The War of the Currents was over, and Tesla was the winner.
By the time Tesla effectively arrives on the scene with his motor, Edison is out of the business. He's basically written out of his own company.
This was something Edison would not soon forget. In spite of the success of AC, Westinghouse had overextended his company's resources, leading to severe financial difficulties. In order to save the company, Tesla said that he tore up his royalty contract for $2.50 per horsepower generated. Today, this agreement would be worth trillions. Had the inventor been tricked again?
This is something that we've never found any record of in the Westinghouse annals. We do have something which is a memorandum of agreement about that, but it was never signed.
But Tesla was ready to move on.
I had already perceived enough to get the idea that energy could be transmitted and received without connecting wires in between.
He was convinced his next invention would make him a millionaire once more.
My services with Westinghouse being no longer essential, I resumed experimental work in a laboratory on Grand Street, where I began immediately the design of high-frequency machines.
Following the success of Niagara, Tesla was at the height of social acclaim. Everyone wanted to know more of this mysterious foreigner who was transforming the world with his electrical inventions.
So far as personal appearance goes, no one can look upon him without feeling his force. His cheekbones are high and prominent, the mark of the Slav. His eyes are blue, deeply set, and they burn like balls of fire. Franklin Chester, the citizen.
Why was he so well known and so popular? It's because the technological advances that he made were so directly related to the relief of the drudgery that people had to endure in their work lives. They could see what he did helped them personally.
Every evening, Tesla showed up at Delmonico's, the most expensive restaurant in town, to be shown to his special table.
He is fanatical about his dress, usually sporting a fine waistcoat, white leather gloves, and a derby hat on his head. He is meticulous about his health and drinks a glass of whiskey a day, saying it will increase his life expectancy to 150 years of age.
Tesla hobnobbed with the leading politicians, millionaires, and celebrities of the era. This was the best way for independent inventors to find support for their projects. His friends were the New York elite, John Jacob Astor, William K. Vanderbilt, and the writer Mark Twain.
I have just seen the drawings and description of an electrical machine lately patented by Mr. Tesla, which will revolutionize the whole electric business of the world.